Hello, my name is Ronnie Cowan, and I'm the County Extension Director here for the University of Florida Office, Okaloosa County, or you may hear it called the County Extension Office or Ag Extension. My normal functions is to work as a 4-H youth development agent. So I do 4-H in the county youth development with all the way from agriculture to robotics to technology. We're a very diversified youth organization in 4-H. But I'm here meeting with you today because you have been designated as a points of distribution or PODS worker in the event of a hurricane or any other national disaster. Once we are activated, you will be called upon to help us out get the needs of victims of that natural disaster. So this is a training that is required. When you review this training, you will have some paperwork to fill out from us that will be sent by my office for the pod distribution site assignment. In years past, we've had preferences. There is no longer any preferences. Don't even mark them because we're not going to view your preferences. We have a lack of workers that have been designated. So we really need you. If we call upon you, we need you. Just for example, you may be called to one of the sites that we have listed, such as the Old Town Potter in Destin, Niceville, the Mullet Festival site, Crestview, Old Spanish Trail Festival site, Fort Walton Beach High School, the Baker Fire Department, or Laurel Hill Fire Department. Those are our typical pod locations, but they're not all inclusive. Such happened in 2020 with Hurricane Sally. We were not at those locations. We had to expand, and we were at the fairgrounds in Fort Walton Beach. So if you're called upon, we need you, but we do not have preferences anymore. Those are the sites that you can be designated to. So let's get started. I have a training video for you to view.
Management Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers designed this overview for the local emergency manager. This presentation will assist you with planning, operating, and closing your local distribution center. What is a point of distribution? A point of distribution, or POD, is where the public goes to pick up emergency supplies following a disaster. The need for a pod is based on the lack of an infrastructure to support the normal distribution of food, water, or other supplies. You, the local emergency management agency, or LEMA, determines the need for a pod, the staffing of the pod, the location of the pod, and the commodities to be distributed there. A pod should accommodate vehicle, pedestrian, mass transit traffic, or a combination of all three. As you can see, a pod operation is complex. There are several things you can do before the disaster to avoid scenes like this. I'm calling the governor's office. There are also things you must do to establish a smooth running pod like this one. Foremost in planning is to identify potential locations. Select sites based on population density. Look at traffic patterns. Ask yourself if people will have to cross a busy street to get supplies. Will this pod location cause a traffic jam? Are there frequent or sharp turns? Can large semi-trucks get in and out of this location? The next step in planning is to design your pod layout. The first question to ask is, what size pod is needed? Then, how will supplies be distributed? How much should each person get? A general quantity rule is that each person or personal vehicle should receive enough for a household of 3. Have you decided where the entrance and exit will be on site? Again, look at the traffic pattern. What's the best location? Will emergency response vehicles have easy access? Project your equipment and personnel requirements well in advance. Staffing is as important to success as finding the right location. Prepare to manage volunteers that you never expected to appear. Also, don't forget a media point of contact. Publicity can make or break your pod operation. Although there is a lot to think about, remember your success is measured by meeting the public's needs. That's why we emphasize the importance of planning. With a developed strategy and coordinated effort, your community will get those life-saving commodities quickly and efficiently. Now that you are prepared, the decision to activate a pod is yours. Take the public need, infrastructure capability, and resources into account before announcing a pod location to the public. The disaster may have created limitations in communications, equipment, transportation, or personnel. Residents are dealing with enough difficulties. Be careful not to add false hope to the list. Once you make the decision to activate, you must assemble a team. A pod team consists of a manager, a loading team, and a support team. The manager is responsible for everything at the pod, including staffing and supply levels, supply chain flow, safety, and reporting. Under the direction of the manager, the loading team conducts loading operations. They keep the vehicles moving safely through the line. The support team resupplies, unloads bulk commodities, and sustains staff operations, including rest areas and trash removal. A public information officer is part of the support team too. You will need one on site to talk to the media and provide information to residents. Safety at the pod site is paramount. Inspect your work area daily, wear proper gear, and report injuries or incidents immediately. Each Lima has different issues to consider. You can see why planning ahead is vital to your pod operation and your community's recovery. The United States Army Corps of Engineers has developed a typing standard for pods, which you may want to adopt. A Type 3 pod is the smallest. It is 150 feet by 300 feet. A staff of 19 personnel supports 3 loading points and 1 vehicle lane. This pod can serve 5,000 people per day. A Type 2 pod is 250 feet by 300 feet. A staff of 34 personnel supports 6 loading points and 2 vehicle lanes. This pod serves 10,000 people a day. A Type 1 pod is the largest and measures 250 feet by 500 feet. A staff of 78 personnel supports 12 loading points and 4 vehicle lanes. A Type 1 pod is only used in large metropolitan areas, and it serves 20,000 people per day. This is an actual Type 3 pod being set up. Pods are generally open to the public for 12 hours a day. Recommended hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Shutting down for resupply from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is a good practice. During this time, staff numbers decrease. This gives your personnel and volunteers a break. This also reduces the amount of time the pod is open to the public in low light conditions. Now the pod is ready to open. A vehicle enters the pod through a 12-foot wide lane marked with traffic cones. The traffic controller stands at the front where everyone can see him or her and signals a vehicle to stop. Once everyone stops, the traffic controller blows one long whistle blast and shouts, "Load!" Load is echoed by the loaders. The loaders load supplies into the car and then step back and shout, "Clear!" The traffic controller visually verifies that everyone has cleared the line. Another long whistle blasts, followed by a hand signal. The next one enters the line and the process repeats. The pod manager monitors the burn rate to keep the supply chain flowing. The consumption rate is reported to Lima each day. Once the disaster winds down, these inventory reports validate costs and are used to recoup costs. When recovery has reached a point where the local community can sustain itself, the pod will close. Make sure you give an advance notification of closing. Let Lima, the property owner, and the public know 24 to 36 hours before you shut down operations. Have a plan in place of where to send anyone who shows up after closing. Some people may still need help. Make sure the site is completely clean when you leave. This maintains goodwill with the owners, so you can use their site again should the need arise. An overview of the pod mission has been provided. It's now up to you as the local emergency manager to plan, organize, and exercise as a team. Start today. Share your knowledge of the importance of the pod mission with your government and private sector partners. Your community is counting on you to be able to get life-saving resources to them. Thank you for taking the time to review this video brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Emergency Management Institute, and the United States Army Corps of Engineers Readiness Support Center.
Okay, thank you for viewing that video. Let's just review some of our pod information. So, county points of distributions, you will hear it called pods. When a hurricane hits or a national disaster happens, we have a very important job to complete to help our citizens here in Okaloosa County. In the immediate aftermath of an event, pods are the first line of relief of operation to the affected residents. Pod sites will be used for the purpose of receiving and distributing emergency relief supplies. We've received water, ice, food, tarps within the first 24 to 96 hours after event. Sites are included in the county with copies forwarded to the federal level, or Florida Department of Emergency Management, excuse me. The average site can distribute commodities to between a little over 1,000 to nearly 1,500, or 3,240 to 4,320 persons per day based on models. 60,000 people equal 130 distribution points for daily service. Each type 1 site requires 32 workers. So that's why it's so important if we are activated that we respond. The state will push water to each county pre-identified pod within the first 24 hours post-event. Ice, food, and other commodities will be provided after 48 to 72 hours, depending upon the assessed need of the operation. The state will attempt to provide minimum staffing for each pod for the first 72 hours. That is best case scenario. We must train and practice for the best case assessment possible. That's not always the case. It can be a chaotic time when a hurricane hits, as we're all aware. That wasn't the case in 2020 with Hurricane Sally. It was just a different year, but being prepared helped us meet the need of the residents here in Okaloosa County. Counties must be able to assume management pods after 72 hours. So after 72 hours, it's up to us. The ones that's watching this video, the county employees and volunteers, we have to be able to run these pods by ourselves. So we have to manage traffic. We have to make sure that we're doing what we need to give these goods and commodities out to folks that really need them. So how this works is you'll have a pod leader at one of those stations that you've been assigned to. More than likely it'll be someone from my office, but they will pre-plan your site, determine the pods needed, activate the pods in affected jurisdiction, and follow guidance from the county EOC. The county pods, again, or could be at Fort Walton Beach High School, Pottery Barn Parking Lot in Destin, Mullet Festival Fairgrounds in Niceville, Spanish Trail Fairgrounds in Crestview, the Baker Fire Department, and Laurel Hill Fire Department. Again, there is no preferences. Currently, we don't have enough workers to have preferences. So you can be sent to one of the following locations, or in the case of Hurricane Sally, a location that we had to set up in the event that we were told to be, such as the fairgrounds in Fort Walton Beach. So some of the things that we get are water, ice, and MREs. And there's some guidelines here that we could do: 4 liters or 1 gallon per person. There's 20 pallets per truck. When we have ice, we do 1 bag per person per day. And MREs, we give out 2 persons per day. It is not our job to regulate or get into an altercation with a resident. So assess their need and move along the line. So a type 1, this is a type 1 pod. As you can see, it serves 20,000 persons per day. This is the one that requires the most workers. And we set it up to where it's like an assembly line. No matter the pod, we have assembly line to try to maximize effort and be more efficient. So here we have 4 lanes of traffic, and we really have 2 sites where they can go to the left and to the right for supplies. And as you see, it is supported by forklift and the materials that are given behind the stockpile lines. A type 2 is literally just half of that. And then the type 3, like we had during Hurricane Sally, serves 5,000 people per day, 140 vehicles per hour. So again, we have assembly line where we load up the cars and keep the flow of traffic moving best as possible. So what happens once we're activated? Or if you know that we've been hit by a storm, you can call into your supervisor after the storm to check in if pods have been activated. If pods have been activated, we will call you. The form that you will fill out after the end of this video, we have your information, your department. We will call you. We will not call you if we don't need you. So if you're called, please respond. Please notify your supervisor that pods have been activated and report to the location that we have given you. Wear comfortable outdoor clothing. Bring sunscreen, fly spray, a folding chair, any necessary medications, and refillable water bottles. So our goal is to keep lines moving safely, place items and vehicles quickly and safely, and don't argue with citizens. Watch for dogs and vehicles, drink plenty of water, take breaks when necessary, and when stores open, ideally we will close. We have a very important job to conduct if we're activated. And remember, we're all on one team here. One team, one fight. To get through a national disaster such as a hurricane, we can work together and make it easier on everyone and provide relief to our citizens. With that being said, you have now completed the PODS training. You will fill out the completed form sent with this video and return it back. Thank you for your willing to serve, and we appreciate that you taking the time to view this training to help our citizens. Have a great day.